Hey, hello everyone. I just asked Chat GPT what it thinks the worst 5 vintage riding mowers are. And I kind of agree with the list. I've owned every one of these, so I do have something to say about it. And it says, well, that could be subjective. However, here are the 5 that it thinks are the worst and why. So starting off with number 1, we have the Sears Suburban. While the Sears riding mower is iconic, some vintage models like the Sears Suburban are criticized for having some transmission issues and being difficult to find replacement parts for. Well, we start searching $299 for a transmission, almost $2,000 for a whole tractor, and it's not being specific whether or not it's the early one, which is what I've had. Mine, someone put a Wisconsin engine on. They're kind of neat. They got little timed decks. The blades are timed, so you got to make sure you set them up right. But they got gear drive on it. It's like a belt going to a gearbox to gears. 5.75 Briggs is what's supposed to have in it. Mine had a Wisconsin, but it was kind of neat to put around on. I think it's still out there. And then you had the later models, and some of them had the Onins and the 16s. These are 12s. But yeah, you got more vertical grill. The later in the model you went. First, we went kind of from a square all the way up to still square, 69. We kind of rounded off a little bit, and then 70 we went all vertical. So that's on Sears. I really don't have a whole lot to say. I don't really have a huge issue with Sears, but the one I've had, it wasn't that bad. Wheelhorse, yeah, this one I have a little more issues with. While many Wheelhorse models are beloved by enthusiasts, some older models are criticized for having weak transmissions and electrical problems. Well, we've owned a few Wheelhorses as well. Moving on. As you can see, there are a lot of Wheelhorses to choose from. Now, yeah, we have a ton. And yeah, are there going to be a few bad models in there? Oh, most definitely. You make that many mowers, you're going to have some goof ups. We actually have a video of getting a Lawn Ranger up and going on the channel here. Neat little mower, didn't mind it. It had electric start, 5.5 Tecumseh engine, really easy to work on. Well, bit of a pain. You got to take the steering wheel off, and then there's some big thumb bolts you can take out, and the hood comes off, and you get things fairly easily. It's just as long as that steering wheel wants to come off without fighting you too bad. They kind of have a pin. They're not as tight on. There's some. 4-speed transmission, not bad. And then we moved on to the newer models. My brother has a Raider 12. And again, with the charging system thing, yeah, I had seen that. I don't think this one ever charged right when we got it. And because it always felt like it needed a jump start. 6-speed, we had a high-low added in on these things. So they definitely upgraded it, but it's still transaxle, possible issues, along with what the John Deeres have coming up. 10 horse, this is actually one that I flipped over on myself. I was taking it up a ramp into a trailer, and ramp gave out on me. I was at kind of a steep angle too, and I ended up just seeing the hood and messed up my back, and it wasn't a fun experience. And it took me years to actually finally get my back fixed. And I'm up and going good now. Thank you, chiropractor. Moving on, the next one in line, we have the John Deere 110. Despite being one of the earliest riding mowers produced by John Deere, the 110 has been criticized for having limited power. Well, I believe it was a 7 horsepower. And durability compared to the later models. So you had an early and late model on the John Deere 110s. You had your round fender, which is not one that I've had because they definitely demand a higher price. Everyone I've seen, people want like $400 or $500 on up for one of these with the round fenders. 2-wheel drive, of course. Yeah, you could get a 7-horse Kohler or an 8-horse Kohler on these. 3-speed gear or a 4-speed. And they had this neat little thing where you had like a fine tuner, this handle here. I can't remember what it was called. CVT. I don't know if it says on the transmission what it was called. A belt-driven CVT. But you could minimize it or maximize it depending on how fast you really wanted it to go. You almost drive it like a hydrostat to a point with number 3 here. Number 3, variator level. I thought it had some fancy sticker along the side of it. I don't remember. It's I haven't had it for quite a while. And then we move on to 74, and it's got the same deal going on with it. You could have an 8-horse, which both of mine actually had the 8-horse, or the 10-horse. The 8-horse, it did all right. It mowed okay, but the transmission was definitely its weak point. The first one I got had 2 different transmissions with it. The one that was in it had, I believe, first and reverse, and it had none of the high gears. And the other one had all of the gears, but third and reverse clicked. So, yeah, that wasn't very good on either one. The whole time you're driving around, you hear tick 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 tick, and the faster you go, you're tick 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 tick. So, it was probably just a matter of time before that one blew apart. Now, in its defense, on that first transmission, they had ag style tires, and I have a feeling they probably tried pulling it like mower pulls, so it might have been an abused mower. I do like the guy at the auction said, well, don't go home and expect to have this thing running tomorrow. And it's like, well, I went home and had it running that night. But yeah, they had a bunch of the wiring messed up, and it kind of had charging system issues too. I had to sort those all out, but that was somebody's hack job in there. I had to go and do some repairs too. Moving on to the next one. Overall, 110 John Deere's. I've had a couple 317s. I like those a little bit better. They were a little heavier built. One had the Kohler, one had the Onan. But the Kohler, I bought it. It was a really nice looking mower, but the crankshaft had blown a rod, or the connecting rod had blown. It wasn't good. The motor blew up, basically. So, yeah, I ended up buying a whole nother one and just stealing the 10 off, the upgraded version with the Onan engine. Stole the 10 off, made a really nice mower. And I ended up selling a pair of them for a decent amount. I came out ahead on that deal. Moving on to number 4, we have the Cub Cadet Original. One I'm surprised to see on here. While Cub Cadet is known for quality, the original model produced in the 1960s has been criticized for its small size, underpowered engine, and lack of features compared to later models. Yeah, later models definitely had a few more features, but this one here, not bad for 1960 to 63. There weren't a lot of options out there. You have a 38-inch mowing deck, 42-inch blade, 36-inch snowblower. Later attachments came out like a one-bottom plow or a loader for it. I mean, they made a lot of stuff for it. Not terrible engine power, 7 horsepower. We compare that to like a Wheelhorse Lawn Ranger, which is really just a lawnmower at the time that Wheelhorse had, and that there had a 5.5 horse Tecumseh. Compare it to the John Deere that came out a little bit later, and we also have a 38-inch mowing deck, 42-inch blade, and a 36-inch snowblower. So the attachments were about the same. This one also had a loader. So it really wasn't far off of things at the time, even was ahead of its time, because by 63, we were starting to come out with the next round. 63 to 65, you'd be comparing more a 100 or a 70 to a 110 John Deere, and that's a whole nother comparison, because these things have a lot heavier rear end. They're shaft drive. They're really well built. I do like these mowers a lot. I might be a little biased. I'm not a fan of belt drive. At the same time, from 51 to 62, you can get an economy country Squire, and that has a 9 horsepower Briggs, but that's almost a whole nother level of a tractor. As you can see here, it's a lot bigger. But attachment wise, we can still get a 30-inch mowing deck, 48-inch mowing deck, a 48-inch blade, and then you could also get rear attachments that would almost attach to like a 3-point setup. So definitely a lot of options available on something a little bit larger. Now, when it comes to features, yeah, this one was a little lacking. You could order it without fenders, without headlights. Yeah, there was a lot of things that didn't have an hour meter. Electric start, I believe, was standard, but it might have been an option too. Not quite sure, because it did have where you could do a rope start. And I will tell you, it's a bit of a pain. Open the hood, get down in there, right there, and put a pull rope in. Although it's nice to have that option, because you kind of lose on the later models. If your battery's dead, you're just kind of out of luck. Or if it's a gear drive, you can pull start them. We have done that before. You put it in gear, hold the clutch in until another mower starts getting you rolling, and then pop the clutch, and then it'll crank the motor over, and you get to fire up. As long as you have a generator going on there and you're making spark, or if your battery's not totally dead, you can still make spark. Just a neat little way to do it. Coming in at number 5, we have one you may not have heard of before, the Bolens Estate Keeper. While innovative for its time, the Bolens Estate Keeper is often criticized for its complicated design, which makes maintenance and repairs challenging. Yes, I do kind of agree with that. The engine's in the rear. Here's Garden Tractor Boys. Go check his video out if you want to learn more about these in detail. He has some good videos up. But the engine's in the rear. You could get either a 7.5 horse on the smaller version, which I believe is what his has, 930, or 931. You have a 10 horse Wisconsin. Pretty good motors. Mine, I only had it running a couple times and used it a little bit, but he actually has some good videos of it running. Mine right now is buried in a shed. It's a rear wheel drive, has a drive shaft going to the front. You would change out the deck. There's like a bolt on each side you'd unscrew, and you could pop this off and put different attachments on it. The available attachments were a 32-inch mower deck, a 38-inch mower deck, a 42-inch mower deck, which is, I believe, is what mine has, a 38-inch blade, or a 32-inch snowblower, which is also something I have for mine. Transmission was a high-low 6-speed forward to reverse, and mine's kind of weird. It's like you have to take a belt off to actually swap it, so you have to pop the hood up, and yeah, it's a little bit of an oddball. Parts are kind of harder to find for these. They didn't sell a ton of them. And they sold even less of its bigger brother, the Groundskeeper. I have one of these. I have a few videos on how this one's working. I just don't have a drive shaft. I've not been able to find one to go from the deck to the front section. The rest of it's there, but the one that actually drives this front mower is missing, and I have not been able to find one at all. I've seen another one of these come up for sale, and I don't think it had one either. I know it had a push blade with it, so I don't think it would have had a shaft just laying around. Yeah, these things are kind of hard to find parts for if you're looking for them. The Wisconsin engine, you'll have better luck finding engine parts, and even that, you're still getting into kind of a oddball Wisconsin engine territory. It seems to be a little less common one. I don't see them as the style that's in here as often as I do some of the earlier Wisconsins, or even the 2-cylinder that's on this. They're kind of hard to find, but I've seen more of those laying around and it sales before than the style that's in these. So definitely something you want to think about. They're cable steering on these, and they're pretty much zero turn. Now, that was pretty good for its time, because at the time, in the 60s, this here was 64, 65. That's my George Workbird. That's a zero turn. This is my Yazoo. That's a zero turn. There were a couple other things. I don't have one of these, but David Bradley had a zero turn. Toro was making zero turns. So there were zero turns. And then we had Big Mows, Swisher Big Mows too at Route. And I've got one of them as well. Those are the 3-wheeled ones with the 1 wheel in front, 2 in back, and it drives like a zero turn, drives almost like a bumper car. You turn the wheel all the way around, it ends up being reversed. Pretty neat little units. They had a few different styles. Ride King was the other name for them. I don't see an earlier one here in the, there's one old Swisher. Yeah, there we go. The older style. But yeah, so I've got a few of those laying around as well. Hopefully we'll get some videos done on them. But I thought that was just something kind of neat. Go over what Chat GPT thought. GPT? Yeah. I just keep wanting to say GTP. I don't know why. It just rolls off the tongue better than GPT. But yeah, I thought that'd be kind of a neat little video to make. Didn't have a whole lot to say on these, but out of all of them, I think the Cub Cadet Original is probably my favorite. It's the one I've used the most, and I do have one, the 110 John Deere's. I have had offers to buy other ones, and I've just turned them down because I'm just not that into them. Same thing with the Wheelhorses. The Sears Suburbans are kind of neat, and the Bolens Estate Keeper is definitely a different type of unit, and I like having that in my collection for sure. But let me know what type of mowers you're looking at. Maybe I got something to say on them. I did do top 10 of, I asked Copilot the same thing, and it gave me a bunch of different engines first, and then I'm like, well, I'm at riding mowers, and it gave me LT1000, LT100. I know the 100s have issues. My neighbor has one of them, and he's been having all sorts of problems with it. Toro Wheelhorse. I mean, okay, we're getting the same thing there in the Sears Suburban. So those are two things that are definitely crossing over between the two different AIs. So they both agree that Sears and Toro have some issues. The Cub Cadet LT1024. Can we do a search on that? Search web. LT1024. I want to see what that is. Oh yeah, it's probably got the. Hold on. I don't want to say too much without 19 horse Kohler. It's not what I thought it was. But we're getting off into a different thing. I mean, there's your big problem right there. MTD. From 2004 to 2005, 2008. Yeah, again, it's too new for me. I don't really mess with this stuff. I don't have a whole lot to say on it. I do know a lot of newer engines are. I see them fail more than the overhead valve engines just in general. I don't know if it's just people not doing oil changes or maintenance or what, but I generally see the newer stuff just the build quality's gone down. In general, a lot of those EX engines from Briggs, oh my gosh, I've seen so many of those. Just hey, you want a mower? Okay, I see it's got that. It's like, oh, there's probably something, and then there's generally something wrong with it. It's like it's not really worth fixing at the price that they sell them for. So it's like they're just about actual throwaway mowers. So yeah. Anyway, my ramblings come to an end. We're just going to leave it here. I'll see you in the next one. Leave a like, hit subscribe. I just thought this would be something different. Ask Chat GPT what it thought the worst mowers were and give my thoughts on what it thought. I kind of agree with the list. It did kind of aim a little low, I think, but it made some safe bets here. So I'll see you in the next one. Leave a like, hit subscribe, and have a great day. Let me know what you think's the worst mower ever. For me, I think the worst mower I've ever worked on was one of these Cub Cadet 365s. You gotta take this whole back plastic off to get below it. It's like 4 bolts, and it's heavy and awkward. It's got one of those Intech engines with the plastic intake that like to go bad. It's just, they're kind of weird to drive. It's not bad to drive, but the seating position just isn't great for me. Maybe because I'm tall. I don't know. I just really didn't enjoy using it even. But I will always say that's probably my least favorite mower. So let me know what your favorite mower is. Maybe we'll try this again and see what the best mowers are for what Chat GPT has to say. So, see you in the next one. Have a great day.